Adam and Eve had two sons. Their names were Cain and Abel. They were the very first brothers born on the earth, marking a new chapter for humanity. Cain grew up and decided to be a farmer. He worked the soil and planted seeds. He would watch his crops grow under the sun, tending the land daily. Abel became a shepherd. He took care of the sheep and lambs. He led them to green pastures and protected them from harm, a gentle and watchful guardian. One day, it was time to give an offering to God. This was a way to show their gratitude and worship. Both brothers prepared their special gifts for the Lord. Cain brought some of the food he had grown from his fields. He gathered fruits and vegetables from his hard work and presented this harvest as his offering. Abel brought the best parts of his flock. He chose the firstborn lambs, fat and healthy. He wanted to give God his most prized and valuable possessions. God looked upon Abel's offering with great favor. He was pleased with the sincere heart behind the gift. Abel's sacrifice was accepted because it was given genuinely. However, God did not accept Cain's offering. The reason was not the gift itself, but the poor attitude and sinful condition of Cain's heart that was wrong. Cain became very angry, and his face was downcast. He felt rejected and deeply jealous of his brother. His heart filled with a dark and consuming rage. God saw Cain's anger and spoke to him gently. He asked, "Why are you so angry? Why is your face downcast?" He gave Cain a chance to change. God warned Cain about his dangerous feelings. He told him, "If you do what is right, you will be accepted." He explained that sin was waiting for him. "Sin is crouching at your door," God said. "It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." This was a clear and direct warning to him. Cain did not listen to God's important warning. He let the anger and jealousy grow inside him. His heart became hard as he plotted against his own brother. One day, Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." Abel, trusting his older brother, went with him without any suspicion or fear. While they were in the field together, Cain attacked his brother Abel. He rose up against him in a moment of terrible rage and shocking sudden violence. Cain killed Abel. This was the very first murder in the history of the world. A brother had shed the blood of his very own brother in cold blood. The ground tragically soaked up Abel's innocent blood. A terrible crime had been committed. The silence of the field was broken by this violent, hateful act. Later, God came to Cain and asked him a simple question. He said, "Where is your brother Abel?" God already knew the answer to this direct question. Cain blatantly lied to God. He answered defiantly, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" His words were full of arrogance and showed no remorse. God knew the absolute truth. He said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. The crime could not be hidden." Because of his terrible sin, God placed a curse on Cain. He told him he would be severely punished for what he had done to his innocent brother. The curse was very severe. "You are now under a curse and driven from the ground," God declared. The very earth would now be against him forever. God continued, "When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you." Cain's livelihood as a farmer was taken away from him completely. Cain was also to become a restless wanderer on the earth. "You will be a restless wanderer," God said. He would have no home or place of rest. Cain cried out to the Lord in despair. He said, "My punishment is more than I can bear." He finally understood the gravity of his terrible actions. He was filled with a great fear. Cain said, "Whoever finds me will kill me." He was afraid of being killed in revenge for his awful crime. But God showed him a measure of mercy. He put a special mark on Cain. This mark was a sign to protect him from being killed by others. The mark was not a punishment, but a divine protection. It showed that vengeance belongs to God alone, and no one was to harm Cain for his sin. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence. He left the land he knew behind. He lived in the land of Nod, which means the land of wandering. The story of Cain and Abel is a very sad one. It shows the destructive power of jealousy and anger. It is a timeless lesson about our choices. Cain chose to let sin rule over him. He ignored God's warning and gave in to his dark emotions. His choice had devastating consequences for his entire family. Abel is remembered as a righteous man. His offering was given with a pure heart. He became the first martyr, a victim of senseless, hateful violence. The story teaches us about the importance of our attitude. God looks at our hearts, not just at the things we do or the gifts that we bring. It also teaches us about responsibility. Cain asked, "Am I my brother's keeper?" The clear answer is yes. We are responsible for how we treat other people. We must guard our hearts against feelings like jealousy. It can poison our relationships and lead to terrible actions if we let it grow inside us unchecked. Anger must also be carefully controlled. God warned Cain to master it. Uncontrolled anger can lead to destruction, hurting ourselves and those around us very deeply. This first family was tragically broken by sin. The murder of Abel brought immense sorrow to Adam and Eve. They lost both of their sons in one day. One son was now dead, and the other was a banished wanderer. The pain and grief they must have felt is almost impossible for us to ever imagine. The consequences of sin spread quickly through the world. From one act of disobedience in the garden, it escalated to the act of murder between two brothers. God's justice is also clearly shown in the story. Cain did not go unpunished for his crime. He had to face the direct consequences of his sinful choice. But God's mercy is present in the story too. He protected Cain from being killed. Even in judgment, God showed a degree of compassion and offered a way forward. Cain went on to build a city for himself. He had a son and named him Enoch. Cain's family line continued, but it was marked by his sin. The legacy of Cain was one of violence and godlessness. His descendants continued down a path away from God, creating a society filled with great wickedness. In contrast, Adam and Eve had another son. They named him Seth. Eve said, "God has granted me another child in place of my beloved son Abel." Seth's birth brought new hope to the family. It was through his family line that the promise of a Savior would eventually be fulfilled, a light in the darkness. The contrast between the two brothers is very stark. Abel represents righteousness and faith. Cain represents jealousy, anger, and the consequences of unchecked human sin. Their story is a foundational one in the Bible. It sets the stage for the ongoing conflict between good and evil that is seen throughout all human history. It is a powerful reminder that our choices truly matter. Every day, we have the choice to do what is right or to give in to our temptations. We can choose to offer God our very best, like Abel did. This means giving with a sincere and willing heart, wanting to please Him above all else. Or we can be like Cain, offering something with a wrong attitude. Our hearts can be filled with pride, jealousy, or resentment, which spoils all our actions. The blood of Abel crying from the ground is a powerful image. It signifies that injustice does not go unnoticed by God. He sees all terrible things. This story has been told for thousands of years. It continues to teach and warn people about the dangers lurking in the human heart when it turns from God. Root of Cain's problem was internal. It was a deep spiritual issue before it became a physical one. His heart was not right with God at all. He allowed a tiny seed of bitterness to take root. This small seed grew into a monstrous tree of hatred that ultimately bore the terrible fruit of murder. God's conversation with Cain is very revealing. God reached out to Cain before the murder, offering him guidance and a way out of his consuming anger. Cain rejected this divine counsel and warning. He chose his own path, a path that led directly to tragedy. He silenced the voice of God in his life. The question, "Am I my brother's keeper?" still resonates with us today. It challenges us to consider our duty and care for the people who are around us. The story implies that we do have a real responsibility for one another. We should look out for each other's well-being, not cause each other any harm. Cain's punishment of wandering was fitting for his crime. He disrupted the human family, so he was sentenced to a life of separation and complete ruthlessness. The earth itself rejected him. The ground that he had cultivated, which received his brother's blood, would no longer cooperate with him. A farmer without good land. This shows a deep connection between human sin and the natural world. Our actions can have consequences that affect the very creation that is all around us. The mark God placed on Cain is a subject of much debate. Its exact nature is not described, but its purpose was clear. It was meant to preserve his life. It was a sign of God's complete sovereignty. It declared that even though Cain was a murderer, his life was still in God's hands, not in man's. This prevents a terrible cycle of revenge killing. It establishes the principle that justice belongs to God, not to individual human vengeance or retaliation. Cain's fear of being killed shows his awareness of justice. He knew that what he had done was deeply wrong, and that it deserved a just punishment. Even in his complaint to God, there's a glimmer of understanding. He realizes the weight of his sin, even if he is more concerned with the punishment. The story highlights the deep pain of exile. Being separated from God's presence and from community is presented as a terrible fate for any human being. Cain's journey to the land of Nod symbolizes a life lived apart from God. It is a life of aimless wandering without any true purpose or lasting peace. Abel's offering was of the firstborn and the fat portions. This detail suggests he gave God the very best of what he had to offer him. Cain's offering was simply some of the fruits of the soil. The description lacks the same sense of giving the best, hinting at his heart's poor condition. The core issue between the brothers was faith. Abel offered his gift in faith, trusting and honoring God. Cain's offering lacked this essential spiritual element. Later, biblical writers confirmed this important distinction. The book of Hebrews says, "By faith Abel offered God a better sacrifice than Cain did." It was all about his faith. This ancient account is more than just a history lesson. It is a mirror that reflects the potential for both good and evil within every single human heart. We all face moments of jealousy, anger, or bitter disappointment. The story of Cain challenges us to decide how we will respond to these powerful human emotions. Will we seek God's help to overcome them? Or will we allow them to control us and lead us down a destructive and very sinful path? The silence of Abel in the story is profound. He does not speak, yet his blood cries out. His righteous life speaks much louder than any words ever could. His legacy is one of innocent suffering. He is the first of many in the Bible who would suffer unjustly at the hands of the very wicked. The story sets up a major theme in the Bible, the conflict between two seeds or lineages, the lineage of the righteous and the lineage of the wicked. Cain's decision to build a city is also significant. It can be seen as an attempt to create his own security and lasting legacy completely apart from God. He sought to overcome his wandering curse by building a fixed settlement. He tried to solve his deep spiritual problem through purely human means and effort. The names of Cain's descendants often suggest violence and pride. They represent a humanity that is increasingly turning away from its Creator and His holy ways. The story serves as a stark introduction to the reality of sin in the world. It shows how quickly humanity fell from its original state of pure innocence, from a single act of disobedience to a brutal murder in one generation. The narrative powerfully illustrates the escalating and deadly nature of all unrepented sin. God's interaction with Cain is that of a patient father. He warns, he questions, and he even protects, despite Cain's horrific and truly evil deed. This reveals God's loving character. He does not delight in punishment, but but desires repentance. He gives every opportunity for a person to turn back to him. Cain's ultimate failure was a failure to love. He failed to love God with his whole heart, and he completely failed to love his neighbor, his brother. Love for God and love for others are intertwined. Jesus would later teach that these are the two greatest commandments on which everything else in life hangs. The story is a timeless cautionary tale. Its themes of jealousy, sibling rivalry, and the consequences of sin are relevant in every culture and every single generation. We can see echoes of Cain and Abel in countless stories and conflicts throughout human history. The struggle between brothers is a powerful, recurring archetype. The ground itself plays a role, almost like a character. It receives Adam's sweat, Cain's crops, and Abel's blood, reacting directly to human actions. This emphasizes the biblical worldview that humanity has a stewardship role over creation, and our moral choices deeply impact the physical world that is all around us. The tragedy could have been easily avoided. If only Cain had listened to God and mastered his sin, the outcome would have been completely and wonderfully different. This places the responsibility squarely on Cain's shoulders. He was not a helpless victim of his emotions. He made a conscious choice to ignore God's wise counsel. The story does not end in complete despair for humanity. The birth of Seth signals a new beginning and the continuation of God's plan for humanity's redemption. Hope is not extinguished by the darkness of Cain's sin. God provides a way for the line of faith to continue and ultimately to triumph over all evil. We are all keepers of our brothers and sisters. We have a moral obligation to care for one another and to promote peace rather than hateful violence. This foundational story teaches us about worship. True worship comes from a heart of faith and love, not just from performing external religious rituals or duties. God desires our hearts above all else. The quality of our offering is determined by the sincerity of our devotion and the genuine love we have for Him. The first death recorded in the Bible was not a natural one. It was a murder, a violent act that shattered the first human family to its core. The story of Cain and Abel remains a powerful lesson for us today. It warns of sin's danger and calls us to choose faith, love, and righteousness.